So next, let me show you all some features about Elementor. So I'll go ahead and turn on the page builder. Now, you don't have to follow me here, but I just want to explain some features that you might like or that you might use. Now, the first thing is over here, you'll see that we have this preview. This allows you to preview in a new tab without having to close the actual window, right? Here you have the help where you can get help. Here we have the finder. This typically allows you to actually scour to other pages. So for example, if you want to go to the contact page, it'll actually jump you over to the contact page where you can just design the contact page instead of actually closing it and opening it and stuff like that. So I'll go ahead and go back to the home page. Here we go. Next are the announcements. So Elementor typically has a lot of updates and they're always adding in new stuff. But what I've noticed lately is that they're really trying to push their other plugins, which can be a little annoying, but you know, it's a good product, but it's just not for me. Next is a checklist. And this is just like a reminder of things, you know, I don't know, it's not really useful in my book. Here we have the page settings. This allows you to hide the title and you can adjust the layout to full width. Typically, most pages are always Elementor full width. So make sure you leave this as your standard page size. And over here, we have the home where you can go ahead and search between other pages, right? Now over here, we have the structure. So this is called the navigator. Now the navigator shows which elements are inside the containers. So I'll click on the drop down and here you'll see if I click on this box that it highlights this section. And if I open this, it actually shows me all the elements inside. Now, this actually is useful if you're building a custom header on the Pro version, because sometimes it can get really hard to reach certain areas. So if you find that like maybe you try to click something and it doesn't work or show up, you can always use the navigator right here. Now, what's interesting about the navigator as well is you can actually drag and drop specific sections. So for example, if I want to take the client section and put it above the hero, I can take this and drag it at the top. Wait, hold on. There we go. Drag at the top. All right. And then we have the client section at the top. If I want to take the client and put it below that again, I'll just put it below that. And there we go. You can also right click and duplicate sections as well using the navigator. So you can always use these options here to delete sections or to duplicate it. So for example, I duplicated those rows and you'll see that we have 2 rows now, right? I can always right click and delete that as well. This is good if you're just, you know, you want to jump to different parts of the websites, or if you just want to, you know, have a little bit more control over your websites. I typically don't use the navigator too much, to be honest, just because it's easy to see what I'm working with, but sometimes it can be very useful. I'll go ahead and close the navigator. Next, let's go ahead and talk about the site settings. Now think of the site settings as a small built-in theme customizer. So here we have global colors. Now, when you imported this specific template, we actually created some global colors for all of you. If you want to change those global colors, you can always go ahead and change these, right? So you can change it to like any color you want, right? So you want like a blue color, or if you want to change the base fonts or whatever, and you can always add in more custom colors. Now these custom colors will be available when users click on the style options. So I'll put like new color here, right? And this will be like orange, or let's just do a red, right? All right, so we have a new color and that's red, right? Here we have the theme Global Solace. So this is actually a built-in feature with Solace. And here you can actually change the colors for the links, the link hover, the button hover, the border, and so on and so forth. So what Solace has done here, we've integrated the WordPress theme to actually go ahead and add in more certain sections where you can just quickly change the link of your website. So you can go ahead and change these colors to anything that you'd like. All right, now to exit out of this, I'll click on Save Changes. So remember, we changed the button to blue and we have this new color red. So let's go ahead and close this really quick. So now going to our website, you'll now see that we have blue all over our websites. And that's just because we changed the global color palette, right? You can always go ahead and change it back, or you can just manually change it. So for example, I can click on this, go to Style, and then go to Color. Now notice here how we have that new color, right? So that's a good way on how to create preset colors. And then here is the Solace integration where we actually have more colors. So what we did here was we wanted to give you more basically options to have different color palettes. So there is a lot of different color palettes that you can create. All right, so that is an example of global colors. Now the same option applies for global fonts. So I'll click on the site settings and then I'll click on global fonts. So global fonts typically make it so you can adjust the fonts for the button, for the H1, H2, H3, and so on and so forth. So for example, if you want the H1 tags to be a specific font, we can go ahead and change the font right here. So what that means is every time that you use an H1 tag, it'll automatically adjust to this specific fonts. This is good when you're building a website because typically you're going to use maybe 2 fonts at most. If you use 3 fonts, I warn you, don't do that. It's a quick way to make your site look really tacky. So you can go ahead and adjust all of these fonts for every specific tag. And also if you want the paragraph, which is just like the main text of your website, you can go ahead and select a specific preset family, the size, and so on and so forth. So that's what preset fonts are. It just allows you to save the actual fonts for all of the elements. Here, click on close. And then you'll see that font now changes because we actually set the H1 tag to be Oswald fonts. So I'll click on style, and under the typography, you'll now see that this changes because we've changed this in the global font section. And if I want to, change this to something else, you'll see that we can go ahead and change that. And these are all presets that you can set in the global font section. Let's go back to site settings really quick. And going back, you can always go ahead and go to the images, and you can always like add borders or something. So for example, I'll put a double border here, and you'll see that all the images will now have this double border, which is really cool, right? So we have these frames right here, right? And this applies to all the images on your website. I do like the double. I think that's actually pretty cool. I think I'm actually going to update this in the actual, in the video description. I do like that style. So I'll click on Save Changes. Now the last option under settings, I actually don't recommend to use these elements. These typically can conflict with a lot of the elements on your website, and I just find myself avoiding these actually. I think the design system is very useful. In fact, if you're building your website, I do recommend to first create styling options, and then you can adjust the theme style if necessary. But for these settings, I typically don't use these because they keep conflicting with the elements and other parts of my website.